Hey guys, it's Todd with Project 9. Welcome to Personal Development Hacks, where we help you get off of autopilot in life and do what truly inspires you and live your best life. So we've got another great show this for this episode. We have a special guest. I'll bring her in. This is Darlene. Hi, Darlene.
Hi, Todd.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So, for the viewing audience that doesn't know you and doesn't know kind of what you're focused on or what you're working on, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us?
I'm Darlene Meisner. I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, in Canada, and I'm a registered social worker up here in Canada, as well as a coach for high producing women.
Well, that's excellent. So, it's interesting you say for high producing women. So, do they want to get higher, better, or is it like are they already at a certain level before they come and see you, or what is it?
It's all of the above and more. It's folks really wanting to put the effort in to go that extra step. So they could be at an executive level in their career. They could be an entrepreneur in their own business, CEO of their own business. They could be a manager wanting to level up in their workplace. There's a whole whack of backgrounds that folks that I work with come from. It's just about really owning what they're doing and wanting to take that step to do a little bit more.
Okay, yeah. So that makes sense. So they've, for the most part, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they've already had some form of achievement or something in their life, and they're just, for lack of a better term, struggling for taking like the next step or the next, evolution of going further and making progress in their careers or stuff like that.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So, I mean, what are some of the things that you've had discussions or that you talk to them about and coach them about as far as getting or going from A to B? Because I know you said to put in the work, and that that's an important lesson for everyone. Like there is no magic pill. It doesn't matter what you want, but if you want more, it's going to require effort and dedication and consistency and everything else. So.
That's right. And on your own part, right?
Yes.
Like you said, nobody else can do it for you. Um, one of the things that people come to me and are working on are sometimes there's this barrier that they just can't get past, something that they just keep banging their head up against the wall when it comes up. And it could be um, you know, around the holidays, around seeing family, when folks have put up boundaries with their family. And sometimes when we're with our family, we don't always show our best selves. We can, make it in the rest of the world, but sometimes those triggers are with our family. So we talk about those, like what are those triggers? What are those barriers? What's really holding us back in that aspect? And how can we move forward? So that's one of the examples, um, which may or may not be childhood trauma. That's another one that comes up. So, adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs, things like that come up, historical things, um, relationship issues, maybe one of their first bigger relationships that they had in their life that was really that really set the course for the rest of their relationships, like their intimate relationships. um, those are the big ones that come up, and sometimes it's about money, where people want to be, they're making a good salary, but they don't always spend their money in the right way, and they don't know how to hold on to their money. So that's another one that comes up. Um, and being single, newly single, out of a long-term relationship, or out of a marriage for several years, and trying to figure out how to parent with this person who you're no longer with. So
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, and it's true. I think I think you might have even told me like when we first met, but like the first 7 years of your life are all download. Where as you grow, you're just taking everything in, and 85% of your development as an adult happens in those first 7 years. And basically, by the time you're 15, you're 99% done of like taking in stuff. So, which is crazy to think about because that's when typically because of emotional maturity and things like that, that's where you're most likely to have what could seem like a minor thing as an adult, but as a 6-year old it could be the end of the world if a friend, their family moves, and all of a sudden your best friend just has to go to a different state or whatever, and going through that and holding on to that, in terms of what as you get to your adult life, and then obviously as a professional. And I mean, women and men go through the similar stuff, but I'm glad that you're focused on females and women in business and helping, because I mean, let's face it, the old adage of the glass ceiling. I mean, it's pretty much gone, but there's still enough of a film there that people, especially depending on how they've been treated and how they've gone through their career, they might still see it as the I'm only going to get to here because that's as high as as a woman or whatever that I can go because of this old adage of you can only be X, Y, and Z. So, um, and in terms of the relationships, it's I mean it's long-term relationship, divorce, they're always tough on all aspects, and it's the biggest thing I think of is like going through my own was making decisions based on always what's best for the kids, um, and just having them at the forefront of their health, their well-being, their ability to just have a good life and a good upbringing. um, so there's a lot of stuff that goes into it on that aspect. So I mean, I'm interested to just kind of learn more about how, like, given whatever path they've taken to come to you, like what are some of the things that is it mostly dealing with stuff, or is it more about like things to do to move up?
It really is both because some
Okay.
of the issues are, a lot of women who are in, higher executive positions are dealing a lot with men, the majority being men. So even, boards and other executives and often the CEO, um, they are of a minority in those spaces. And so sometimes it's about how do they say the things that they wanna say without seeming, too aggressive? Because women are told they're, aggressive if they stand up for themselves, where men are, "Oh, good for him, he said what he really felt, and he's so assertive." But this a woman could say the exact same thing, and there's different terms, negative connotations attached to that. So it can be something like that, trying to speak up at the table and feeling like they're always shut down or people aren't listening or whatever the case may be, not being invited to some of the activities that men are going to. It could be um one of the examples that someone used with me recently was the cigar room example, going for a cigar in the cigar room. One of the other ones that is common is, going to play golf. So often the male executives will be invited, and sometimes the females too, but it's very male dominated. So not only the invitation is male dominated, but the space when you get there is also male dominated. So just trying to really negotiate for themselves where they fit in this space that is mostly a male space.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Well, and that's I think you're I I get it, and certainly there's still stuff that happens like that, like the cigar room or the playing golf and stuff like that. It's um, at the same time, I think a big important one for everyone out there is if you find yourself in that situation, be it male, female, whatever, instead of looking at it as you're the only female in a male event, and you kind of feel ostracized or kind of off to the side or whatever. You need to look at it as like a feather in your cap and be confident because you are unique. You're the one that's there. The you can kind of stand on that and say, it was the other executives, which was 4 or 5 other men in mostly men, male dominated sports or whatever environment, and me. And so that makes me unique. It makes me, you can look at it a couple different ways, but I would look at it as that should give you confidence in that you're there. And regardless of people's reactions, how they react, it's not, it's who cares. It's like that's their own preconceptions and notions. Your self-worth, and you should be confident in the fact that I went there and I went to the cigar room or I went to play golf or whatever. And let's face it, a lot of times those golf events turn into guys just wailing away and like really showing like, wow, you're really not good at this. So, but I mean, with the example of the cigar, like how did you help her like deal with that or understand that or help her through that with that specific one?
Yeah, so the cigar room was given in an example from a peer who was talking about that, and we're talking about the same issues. But there's a lot of different things going on in this, and even as you're talking about, yeah, she's there. Sometimes they're there to fill a quota, right? Oh, look, we have a woman in our team, and so they do it as um, what is that called? Just to fill a number. And they uh, women aren't always they're not treated the same. They're, you know, expected to work really hard all the time where the guys don't always have to. They're okay to, go and have coffee with so and so or take a longer lunch where a woman is often needing to show that she deserves that job and has to prove herself in a different way than the guys do. And, even on the example of the cigar room and the golf days and whatnot, even the golf trips, this is part of um, why I've created my main package, which is working with women in a 12-month capacity, because I really want to get to know them. I want them to be comfortable with me. I want to be comfortable with them. I want a real good relationship and groove going. And so there's lots and lots of support in there. And there are also one-to-one retreats, several per year of just us two that are in there that um, really allow them to have that one-to-one coaching support in a way that where they are invited and we can make what we want in that retreat as a priority, where the guys are going to the cigar room or going to play golf, and if she's not interested in those kinds of things, or just wants to be in a women only space, then that's what this program is all about, this one package that I do have. So it's a way to really support women in a different way and to give them that break as well. So we talk a lot about their position and where they're at within their organization, whichever whether it's their own or whether they're working for somebody else. And we really try to figure out what can they do to take that next step? And what is it going to be? And then what are we going to do to get there?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, that's super important. And just because you were talking about some of those packages, so I'll bring up your information here. So just walk through kind of how to get a hold of you, or some of the things I know you got your retreats up here, so just take a few minutes and go through your contact info.
So my contact info is my name, and it's also my business. So I have my name, Darlene Meisner, which is my website, as well as my business, which is called Decollage Solutions. It's the same. It's the same site. And then for the retreats, they're called For Her Retreats. And it's based on a song by the Chicks, formerly known as the Dixie Chicks. And let me just bring it up here. I just want to make sure that. So on the page, we have Mexico City being one of the big ones. And that had been planned for this year, but it's only a few months away. And the accommodations were getting quite tricky to manage. So we've pushed it off into 2024. So one of the retreats is in Mexico City for Dia de los Muertos. So the end of October to the beginning of November. And then the one that's coming up the soonest is South Korea and Japan in 2024 in April. And then other one that is coming up next year. I have a bunch here that
Mhm.
we're talking about, like that we're planning and talking about planning, which are Morocco, the Philippines, Turkey, New York City, and the UAE. But the other one that is not on the list is Mauritius, which is on the eastern coast of Africa. So those are the ones that are coming up next year for sure, is Korea and South Korea and Japan, Mexico City, and Mauritius. So those are like those retreats are a little different than the ones that are with the package. So the ones with the package are 2 and 3 day retreats that have to do with that, 12-month package. And these retreats are separate. They're about a week or two long, depending on where we're going.
Gotcha. And
Mhm.
the one that you're mentioning now, that's not part of the package. That's not just one-on-one.
That's right. So the ones like the For Her retreats, they're not one-on-one. Those are group retreats.
Got it. Well,
Yeah,
that's super cool. Well,
full of spoiling and luxury.
yes. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make those for a couple different reasons, but yeah, that we'll just leave the main reason alone, that I'm not going to an all-female retreat. Yes. Um, so back to your coaching and stuff. Because like I love the fact that you're talking about helping them with careers, but how often do you find that morphing into like goals or aspirations or things that they want to do that are outside of their career? Like, it's not their executive path or anything like that, but it has to do with other stuff. I know you mentioned briefly, like, with they make good money but they don't know what to do, and obviously you got to talk about wealth creation and how money actually works and how you create wealth and not just have money. But then there's other parts of it as well. There's obviously your health and then relationships, which you did touch base on a little bit. But how often do you find that when someone starts kind of on the path with you about their professional career, that it kind of brings in some other aspects?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And that is, people have their own bucket list, and they do for work, and then they do for their career. And sometimes people are working in a space where they've gotten as high as they've wanted to, and they've done what they've wanted to do. And now they want to look at the other aspects of their life, which is what you're referring to. So folks will often have like a specific place they've wanted to go, that or something they really wanted to do. Maybe they wanted to do, what is that called when you jump out of a plane? Parasailing? Is that no,
Parachuting,
parachuting?
skydiving.
Skydiving, that's it. So skydiving, that is one that people have on their bucket list. Um, Visiting a certain place, of course, many different places. It could be like a, world UNESCO heritage site. It could be a country. It could be a city. Um, Drive through. Um, Take a whole drive through Ireland is another one that I've heard. A lot of it has to do with going to see places. It could be places that they've just wanted to see for a long time, or it could be heritage based. It could be because, their grandparent was born there, or that's where their roots are, or, they met someone there on a trip 20 years ago, and they're still in touch with that person, and they've always talked about meeting up there, and they finally want to do it. So getting to Australia from here in North America is quite the feat. So that's another big one that people have on their bucket list: Australia, New Zealand. um, Zip lining, walking up a volcano. um, but
Hopefully
most
when
of
it's dormant.
I hope it's dormant.
Yeah.
Yes. Hopefully. Yeah, that's a whole other kind of wish if you are going up there and it's not dormant.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Hmm. So yeah, it's a wide variety of things, and even you asking that question, this is how we came about to meet, right? I was just finishing up um, a 4-week long road trip through the States, which meant to be only about a week, not even. When I had to go, I didn't have to go, but I wanted to go to this women's event in Southern Indiana. And then I kept going. I went to Dollywood in Tennessee, and I just kept driving around, and I kept going and kept going. And all of a sudden, one day I woke up and I was like, okay, it's time to go home. And I started making my way back home slowly. I think it took about a week to get home after I decided I was going to head home.
Yeah, because you basically saw like a lot of like the eastern part of the U.S. I mean, everything from obviously the Canadian U.S. border to, you said you were in Florida as well, and then kind of up through the Carolinas, and so. But what I mean, let's expand on that a little bit. So it started off as a week, but what happened that turned it into a longer journey? Like, was it like, was the compass broken and you thought you were going north and it was actually going south, or was it intentional that like you got going and it was like you were searching basically?
So I had gone to the event, and the person who had put it on is a coach. She's a life coach. And so she had, at the event, she had some like hot seat coaching where people could just volunteer to go up in that moment. And I hadn't planned to go up on stage, and someone beside me, someone who has become my friend, but I had just met at the event, was kicking me under the table gently, like, go up, go up. And I was trying to ignore her. I wouldn't even look at her. And finally I said, okay. So I went up on stage, and I talked about some things I wanted to do, and just my own barriers that have been holding me back. And and then I announced, after this, I'm going to Dollywood. And so that at that moment, now that I said it on stage, I was like, I got to go to Dollywood. Like, it's not just me invested in this, and I'm so close. I think it was only about 4 or 5 hours away from where I was at that point. So it it like, when else was I going to get down there? It had taken me a couple days to get there in the first place. So I thought this was a great opportunity. So I just, after the event, I got back in my car and I started going to Dollywood, and going through the Great Smoky Mountains. Like, those were beautiful. The traffic was really bad through the mountains. Like, it was really, really busy, and there were lots of semi trucks with like moving houses. So it was a little tricky, and I didn't get to see as much of the mountains as I wanted to, because I had to really concentrate on the
Yeah,
road.
yeah. You don't want to wreck and be like, oh, that was pretty
That's right.
off the side. You go, yeah, don't do that.
But when I did, especially up in the mountain, but when I did got to see mountains, that was in like when I was going through Virginia and West Virginia. Holy smokes, is that ever gorgeous? That was on the way home. But after I went to Tennessee, yeah, you're right. I went down to Florida. I got to Orlando. That's as south as I went. So I came all the way from Winnipeg, which is right above North Dakota. And I went to about 12 or 13 states on that whole trip. Went through the Midwest and then down to the East Coast coming up. And then there were lots of storms and flooding. And I had hoped to go like, continue up, going up the coast, the East Coast, and into the East Coast of Canada. But because of all the storms and whatnot in New York and all around that area, I decided to go back through the Midwest and come back the same way.
Yeah. So, I mean, and obviously you don't have to get into as much detail or whatever, but like, what was the benefit of taking that amount of time with basically just yourself and your thoughts and obviously the traffic? Hey, you're here, so we made it, so that's good. But what was what did you discover? What did you learn about yourself or your thoughts like during that month-long period?
It was incredible. Even just saying my own crap that was holding me back up on stage in front of all of these people, it's not something that I would normally do. And so just doing that in front of an audience was so freeing for me. And that's what allowed me to open up and allowed this space for me to, literally opened up in front of me to go and keep going. And I had the time. I had finished a contract that I had for about 3 years. I finished it in April. And so I had the time to do this where I have not had that time in quite some time. So it really it really allowed me to check in with myself on in a way that we can do that, and we do that, and I do that at home and wherever I am, but we don't always have the time to continue doing that. So when we're at home, we have a lot of responsibilities, and that could even be as easy as it's time to make lunch. It's time, like I've left the bathroom for this many days now. I need to clean the bathroom. We have so many distractions at home. The weeds this time of year, a lot of weeds, right? And so with all these distractions at home, on this trip, I was really able to dive into some of the issues that have been bothering me, that some of them that I knew about, some that I didn't know about, some things that I discovered about myself that I haven't maybe ever known or um, forgot for a long time. And staying really present with that. Like it was a lot of fun. I would, make a decision whether I was going to just drive in silence or if I was going to, like, for white space to be able to be there, with my own thoughts, listen to podcasts or audiobooks and or music. So you know what it's like when you get your own tracks on and you're like driving. That's something wild, right? That's magical when you're just like singing at the top of your lungs and in the car by yourself. You don't even have to worry about how you sound because you sound excellent because nobody else is around and you don't have to, you know,
Yeah,
policing ourselves.
I'm a rock star in my own head.
That's right. So it was amazing. And I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, and even I mean, I'm happy for you that you got to take that, and from knowing about it the first time we met until today, it's like, having that space and that ability to, like you said, sometimes it's just the white space where you're kind of alone in your thoughts and figuring things out for yourself and being able to ask honest questions and give honest answers because there's no one there, that you're not at risk of anything, right? You're not standing on a stage and putting out there like your deepest, darkest stuff. But when you're alone by yourself, you can have that little bit of self exploration. And I think for the majority of people out there that maybe can't take a 4-week road trip to wherever, it is important to create time, either daily, weekly, whatever, that you can be away from the responsibilities of everything that's going on. And it could be like, the middle of the day, or it could be when you first wake up or before you go to bed or whatever, but just creating that time to be alone with your thoughts. And I've talked about this before, but like every 6 months, like I basically take a half day, and I just do a pretty deep dive, like a self audit. It's not like, what's the checkbook at, or what's this or that. It's truly like, with my life goals and with my company goals and everything that I want to accomplish and that I'm working towards, like, where am I at? Where am I strong? Where am I not as strong? Where can I adjust? And taking that time to be able to come up with revisions to plans constantly. I mean, that's basically what life is, right? It's a series of an infinite number of course corrections, where things will present themselves that will be right, things will present themselves that won't be right, and how you're responding to those. You could, if you're doing that honest evaluation, you can look at it and put yourself in a better spot the next time that a similar item or something comes up. As well as, obviously, the emotional journey as well, as in terms of, loved ones, kids, whatever ultimately it is. Like, how are they doing? Like, we tend to focus so much on ourselves, but how does that impact, the other people in our lives? And especially like with kids, especially if they're younger kids, like, if you're working a crazy schedule, well, am I taking the time to dedicate to spending time with them and helping them grow and develop as well? So,
Hmm. And one of the things for women is that because they're focusing so much on their life around kids, quite often is taking this time for themselves can be totally foreign.
yeah, yeah, I mean, yeah, as much progress as has been made, just around the world in terms of shared responsibilities. And it's not the 50s where, the husband worked, the wife ran the house and raised the kids, and cooked steak while smoking a cigarette and stuff like that. I mean, we've all seen those funny ads. But um as much as we've kind of grown through that, there is still an element of it. And I think it's part that's the way that it was. But I also think it's just natural human nature that, a woman, it tends to be more caring, more loving, more outgoing with their emotions, being able to, talk to a younger generation, stuff like that, especially their kids, and being able to share with that. Where so I think there is a different natural connection between a mother and her kids and a father and their kids. Or is that, you agree with that?
Well, it could be. It's more about systemic pressures that, with like patriarchy and different types of systemic pressures around oppressive factors like that push women into that role. And so when a woman is constantly being attacked for, oh, where were her kids? So my daughter is older at this point, but um when I was younger and took trips, I mean, I didn't hear a lot of the things that people were saying. I'm sure they were saying them because I hear them saying about other people. So why wouldn't they say it about me? Why isn't she with her kid, or what is she doing? Where a man, when he does it, oh, good for him. He took that time. He took that time to take care of himself. Well, women need to take care of themselves too. And that's one of the big pieces that I always push, is that we do need to take care of ourselves. We do need to not get stuck in this role of just being a parent. And, our kids are always going to need us, and our kids are always going to be there. But our health isn't, and our sanity isn't as adults, because kids are a lot of work. they're a lot of work. And
Right.
we have to, it's not just about physically caring for them, but we need to make sure that we're mentally there as well. And it's something that we really need to pay attention to not get lost in our kids, any of us, because and not to get lost in ourselves either. So either, going from one spectrum to the other is not ideal, being at the very end of each. But it's about that balance, right? You're talking about, like, what are the kids, thinking about the kids and thinking about ourselves. There's a balance in that.
Yeah.
You know?
No,
So
you're
tricky.
absolutely, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that you're correct in that typically if as a parent or a mother, father, whatever, when you're faced with that kind of like balancing act of, what's best for the kids, what's best for me, you tend to lean towards, well, what's best for the kids. And
Yeah,
often we put ourselves back seat. But you're right that, self-care and just, you know supporting ourselves and making sure that we are the best that we can be, both mentally, physically, emotionally, everything like that. But you need that time to kind of to improve in those areas and make sure that you are taking care of yourself, because if you're not going to do right. You're not going to do the best that you can for your kids, for your job, for anything else. So you need to take the time to focus on yourself and making sure that you're putting yourself out there as the best version of you, not like a worn down, like, I've been focused on the kids for so long, or, whatever. So I agree that you do need to take the time to make sure that you are putting your best foot forward in all situations, because it's going to benefit everyone in the long run. And the more that you do it, the more the less time it takes every single time you do it. Because, once you establish, like, okay, I'm good with all this stuff, and then you come down a little bit, but you're still higher than where you started the first time, and then so when you kind of take that time again, be it on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, whatever it is, but when the next time you take it, you're getting even better than you were before. And and people recognize it. It's, kids especially, because,
mhm.
that was something just learned very early on, is like, it doesn't matter what you're talking about or what you're doing. Kids are observant. They see and hear everything. Um, not that I did anything wrong, but it is eye opening that, regardless, they see what's going on and they experience it, and they react. And it especially if they're 0 to 7, that's 100% download time, right? And so if you're doing something out, just that's a little bit off or whatever, your kids are going to recognize it, and it's part of their psyche now, kind of moving forward. And now you're dealing with some of the women that are dealing with that trauma that maybe wasn't of their own doing, but things that they experienced during that first, 7, 8 years or whatever, that they learned from their parents, not intentionally.
Right. Like, and it could be, unhealthy coping strategies, right? So when we're kids, we pick up on those things. If the person who birthed us was stressed out throughout their pregnancy, that will often go into, like, that the baby inside feels that, right? So they're born stressed out, they're born more nervous and whatnot. So it's there's so many factors. And like you said, like, it's really important to check ourselves when we are with our kids. And for me, I made tons of mistakes. I was a single mom, so I made 1,073 mistakes about that.
Well, the 1,073 fourth would have been oh, that's it.
Yeah. Well, I'm lucky then. Thank you.
Yeah, you stop short. You're good.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, if I could go back as a parent, well, I wouldn't. It was so hard being a parent, of a little one. But um I would like to think if I knew more at that age, because I was young, that I would have done better. But it is what it is. I can only do better going forward in every day of my life. And so, as you know, I came home this time from this trip to get my house ready to put on Airbnb. So that's what I've been doing. And um, really planning the house out and getting really excited about decorating is obviously the most fun part of it. And I had a friend come and help me last week, and she just helped me really organize some of the things I already have. And she's like, "You got a lot of great things here." And so she's putting them in different rooms and putting them together in ways I never did before, I would have never thought of. So just having a fresh set of eyes has been really helpful, and someone I trust too.
Right.
And then I have another friend coming over this afternoon who's going to help me move some big items. She said, "Do you need any help?" And I said, "You know what I really need help with? Moving the furniture up and down the stairs, because I'm moving certain things to different rooms." And that's really hard to do by yourself is move big pieces of furniture up and downstairs. So
Yeah.
she's coming to help me this afternoon for a couple hours. And as soon as this house is ready, I'm back on the road coming for coffee with you, Todd.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I'm heading to California.
To learn to surf.
That's right.
See, there you go. Um, so the one of the cool things, like what you're talking about, is just the, like, you know, if everyone looks at, like, well, if I knew then what I know now, but you never do. And, like, just get over the fact that you made mistakes as a parent, as a young adult, as, a child, whatever. Like, you made choices based on your age, your, emotional maturity, your physical maturity. Just, you weren't you weren't an adult, so you were using different parts of your brain. And, but the fact that, when you look back, it's like you do the best that you possibly can. And, you know the the focus, as long as you obviously love your kids and they're cared for, they recognize that stuff too. Now, they might not realize everything that has been done for them as they grew up until they're 25, 30 years old, and then they look back and they're like, wow, that was pretty powerful. But, as a parent, you're not looking for immediate gratification. It's like you're doing everything the best that you possibly can. Um, so let's, I just, with your coaching business, I know that, like you said, it's high performing women, and a lot of them, like, their main goal and your main focus of your coaching is helping them to escalate, elevate, whatever you want to say, and improve their position in their career or their power within their position, stuff like that. But, as far as I mean, it's pretty much a guarantee. But basically, people set resolutions or goals in one of three aspects, right? Health, wealth, relationships. Um, and people, you might have different iterations and stuff like that, but it usually, when you dig into it, it boils down to one of those three categories. Um, so, with that said, like, I mean, when people come to you, how does it, when you fix, or not fix, but when you talk to them about what they're currently dealing with and your focus, like their career, and I know you said it's like a year-long program. But when they get that part kind of under their control, and they understand, they may not have accomplished it yet, but they know exactly what they're going to do and steps along the way. So what else? I mean, like, I know you said that it kind of morphs into a variety of different things in terms of trips and everything like that, but just talk a little bit about like how you change or you help them understand that, you know, if they're improving their career, like it's actually improving everything, even if they're not focused on it.
And you know, just having clientele that are high producing, they often already know that, right? That all of these pieces are linked together, and we can work together longer than 12 months because, you know, for example, I've had the same therapist since 2016. So what year is it? 20
But three.
23. So for 7 years. And there are always different things that come up because we have had such long lives already. So, have I told my therapist everything? No. You know, even the other day, I think, and maybe it was yesterday, I was doing something and something came up in my mind. And I thought, okay, I need to talk to her about that. So I write it down, and something that I've never talked to her about before. Oh, where did that come from? And then I'll explore that with myself. So, because we've had such long lives already, even if I'm with someone for 1 year, they're only telling me a certain amount of something, but
Right.
there's always things that come up, right? And one of the things right now, and you would know this, is, um, you know, l- living in this world that we went through, where we went through a pandemic and how things have changed. So people trying to like get back into this world and seeing where they fit properly and how to do this in a way that feels good to them, and with the world being so different around us. So for example, um I'll use myself as an example. So going on this 4-week long road trip, I saw a lot of different people. I met a lot of different people. You know, just going into different stores, hotels, all of that. People are at a different level these days. You know, they've lived through this thing that we've all had to live through, and some people lost people, right? Or they've had health conditions because of the pandemic that are long lasting. Um, and then reevaluating their own position in where they're at. So people aren't as invested is really what I'm noticing when I'm going to places, is people aren't as invested in whatever their job is. It may be their career, it may not be their career, depending on what level they're at, but people don't seem to be as invested after going through this real, like, this huge shakeup, right? It was a real big wake up call for a lot of us. And so we're always changing, we're always evolving. Even, you know, like I said, I something came up in my mind yesterday that I wanted to talk to my therapist about. It wasn't something new. It was like this old pattern that I didn't even know that I had. All of a sudden I noticed it. And so things like that, yeah, we'll get to a certain part, but once we get to that part, okay, now we're there. Oh, there's other things. You know, it's kind of like when you're doing renovations on your house and you want to take this wall down. You take this wall down, and when you take the wall down, you realize there's four other problems that you have to fix. So we're unfortunately, because we're just, you know, human, we have a lot of issues inside of us, some that we know and some that we're not aware of, and some that we really we don't even want to acknowledge. So where we're at and who we're with really depends on how we're really going to open up.
Yeah, and I think the like you said, like the best way to that I think about it is like a huge stack of pancakes, right? And there's some problems that are sitting on the bottom, but you never know they're there or they exist until you start to deal with all the layers on top. And that's where you might have been, is like you had dealt with all these layers, especially after your road trip and everything like that, and you had dealt with all this stuff, and then finally you got to that bottom pancake and it went, oh yeah, I'm here too. And to your point, it's like, okay, I recognize that, but you know, it's important, like writing stuff down. Like it's a small lesson for everybody, but just always have a notepad with you. So when great thoughts or any thoughts come to your head that are worth remembering, write them down, and then you can put it out of your mind and you can go back to whatever you were focused on before. Because instead of wrestling with, I got to remember this. I mean, how often does that happen? I got to remember this. I got to remember this. I got to remember this. And the first thing you forget is the thing that you said, I got to remember this.
I do that all the time.
It happens, it happens to absolutely everybody, because you're focused so much attention. I got to do this, that it just disappears. So, it's a small lesson just to write everything down. But along with that said, so if anyone out there, I mean, obviously, Darlene, you focus on women, high performing professionals, but anyone else out there, if you feel like you're just on autopilot and you want more out of life, you want to truly do what inspires you and get to living your best life, just go to go.project9life.com. It's a complimentary phone call. We'll talk about where you're at, where you're going, and kind of how to get there and how we can help you. The most it's going to cost you is 30 minutes of your day to have a conversation and explore some of the stuff a little bit deeper. And then obviously, we could also go through the packages and what we offer and get you guys going from there. So, but back to just like what we were talking about, it's like there's so much complexity in everyone's life, right? That, you have to be, you have to be patient with yourself. Like you can't get to the bottom pancake like in one scoop and just like eat the whole stack. Like you have to break it down, and you have to understand that to truly deal with things and move past them so they don't come back up again, it does take time. It does take effort, depending on exactly what it is. Some things it's like, a 20-minute thought with yourself, and it's like, okay, that I get it. I understand why that happened, and I'm done with it. But other stuff, it requires like time, like really some deep thoughts or some examination of actions and consequences and why stuff is manifesting itself from the memory that you have that you didn't know you did, and why is it manifesting itself now in whatever form that it's actually taking. So, but yeah, there's a lot of complexity with it. But I mean, congrats to you for taking people that like you said. I mean, it's great that you're focused on not just women, but high performing women, because I agree with you. It's like there needs to be more. I mean, there just needs to be talent is talent and skills are skills, and it doesn't matter what source it's coming out of. I say that all the time. It's like, yeah, there's me and most people out there. It's like, I'm not a national name. Tony Robbins is, but what message resonates with you? Because that's the key, is like, don't look at the source, look at the message. And that's the important part that I think that you get to as well, is, just getting people to understand what those next steps are. So we got a couple minutes left. So why don't you take it from here? Take a couple minutes, and then we'll wrap it and get out of here.
Well, now you've made me want pancakes.
You're welcome.
And I was just thinking of that metaphor, and the reality is when you do get to the bottom of the stack, the last pancakes on the plate are the most soggy, and you're like, what the heck is this? Do I even want to look at this? Do I want to eat this? Do I want to look at this? And when we're dealing with our stuff in our lifetime, we can't deal with it all at once. Like, we would break down. We wouldn't be able to function. So we've built these protective walls around us that allow us to survive, and that's what our brain does. And our brains and our bodies are so connected that if we don't deal with our stuff, and so many people know this, if we don't deal with our stuff, it'll come through in our body in some way. So you might have pain in this place, or you might have this ailment, or whatever is going on. And so it's so important to get the thoughts out of our head and find someone who we can be vulnerable with, someone who we feel safe with. That may be you, that may be me, may be neither of us, it could be somebody completely different. But it's so important to find someone who you feel safe enough to talk about the issues that have gone on for you in your life. I've had, last year, this time, I had 3 different therapists. And not that I don't see any of them anymore, or 2 of them anymore. It's just that things have progressed where not using all of them for the same reasons. It doesn't mean I won't go back. I have my own coach. So I'm working with different people, and I talk about different things with different people. So we could also say this about our friendships, right? I'm going to tell you a little bit of this, and I'm going to tell this person a little bit of that. And it's not that I'm holding back from you, or I'm holding back from that person. It's that's what we start talking about with that person with, and we just continue that. And there's so much going on in our lives that we don't, who knows us better than ourselves? Nobody, because we can't share everything with somebody else. So it is really important to at least have another person to talk to. And that could be about the things that are keeping you up at night. It could be about the things that you don't even know are keeping you up at night. You know,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
just start talking.
Yeah, that's an important one. Is find someone that you're comfortable, that resonates with you, and talk. And just, we're here as, unassuming, just uninterested, not uninterested, but just bystanders. Like, we'll get to know you, but at the beginning we don't, and we have no judgment. That's for sure. So, Darlene, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today. For everyone else out there, thanks for watching this episode, and we'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.